Hello, this is Paul Hoyt. Welcome to our Office Hours presentation for today. Our Office Hours is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do almost every Monday at noon Pacific time. All these recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and all the recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these office hours presentations is that we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team in order to be successful, and we want you to get to know us. When you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we care about you. We want you to succeed in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity that you have within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these office hours presentations beneficial to you, I strongly encourage you to pass the word. Pass the word to your fellow entrepreneurs, CEOs, and anybody out there that you think might gain value from these sessions. We always have an interesting topic. We always have a lot of great questions and lively discussion, and we know that people are getting a lot of value out of it. So please help us out and help them out by passing the word along whenever you can. Our office hours agenda is usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle and closing remarks, special offer, and an invitation for next week's session, and then we go into open Q&A and coaching. Today, however, is live group coaching, so we're just going to go into the Q&A coaching without too much of a canned presentation. We usually review the last few office hours presentations to kind of spur thoughts and stir questions for a little bit before we jump into the coaching part of it. We encourage you to join us in the Awaken CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we publish a business success principle of the day 4 days a week. And I do an energy of the day posting every day on Facebook. That's part of my morning discipline, is that every day I wake up and think of something positive to say, encouraging to say, motivational to say around this long, long list of words that I created many years ago. And it's really good for me. I hope that you enjoy those too. And as we mentioned, today's topic is open Q&A and group coaching. As always, we try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of success that I introduced in my book in 2004 called The Foundation Factor. The gist of the book says that to be a successful entrepreneur, you really need to be competent in all of these areas, that a weakness in any one of these areas of business will cause you to struggle a bit in your business. So we encourage you to be strong in every area of business, and we usually talk about one or more of them. Today we're open game for any and all of them. So if you have a question on leadership, on marketing, on sales, on financial management, on customer service and delivery, on product development, on operations and administration, please feel free to raise your hand and ask that question or send it to us in some way. We also focus here at our company on the 3 different levels of performance, of mindset, methods, and momentum. And today's discussion can be about any one of those or all of them. So you have questions about mindset, about managing your attitude and your perspective. If you have a question about methods, about creating and developing plans and operational checklists and then following those, or questions about how to get into momentum, how to sustain your momentum, or how to increase your momentum, we're happy to address any and all of those questions. Let's start with a quick little reminder here of previous office hours. Since the last coaching session, we talked about office hours 90, which was on quarterly planning review, and office hours 91, which was on emotional intelligence, the secret of effective leadership. In the office hours presentation that we did before our quarterly planning review, we talked about critical concepts in planning, in goal setting, and goal achievement. We talked about the first 3 steps in the 5-step Awaken CEO growth process. We talked about setting your vision for your business and clarifying that and the importance of that. We talked about understanding where you are today, understanding what your status is relative to the company that you want to create. And we talked about creating your plan, your long-term plan, your mid-term plan, and your short-term plan, and summed it all up with the bottom line. In Office Hours 91, which is one of my very favorites, on emotional intelligence, we talked about what emotional intelligence is and how that term was founded in about 1990 at Yale University. We talked about different models of emotional intelligence, talked about emotional intelligence and job performance and why it's so important. If you have a job that interacts with people at all, if you're not just a technical worker where you don't interact with anybody and it's just you and the machine, emotional intelligence is really, really important. People want to feel safe and they want to build great relationships, and we do that through improving emotional intelligence. We talked about emotional intelligence and the brain, how the amygdala is the place where emotions are triggered from. That grammar wasn't quite right, but it's the place in your brain where we experience emotional triggers and how those triggers can hijack the cognitive mind. Very, very interesting subject. We talked about ways that you can improve your emotional intelligence, and we talked about the relationship that I see in between the term emotional intelligence and personal growth, and again summed it all up with the bottom line. So with that kind of brief little reminder of the last two office hours sessions that we had in between today and the previous live group coaching session, we're going to jump into open Q&A and invite you to share with us any discussion topics you have, challenges that you are facing in your business today, or questions that you might have. And with that, Stephanie, do we have any questions or suggestions for today's call?
Yep, we do. First question right here. This is about raising capital. How do I determine how much money to raise for my business? She's asking.
That is a question that I get a lot. As it turns out, by the way, 75 or 80% of all businesses out there bootstrap, that they don't really raise capital at all, that they build the biggest, strongest business that they can. They try to develop a profitable, sustainable business, if not a scalable business, with their available funds. So certainly not everybody raises capital, and it may be that the best choice for you is to start a business without raising capital. There are businesses, of course, that require you to raise capital because they take a massive amount of funding to get going. So if you want to build a software system, the next Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you're going to find that at some point in time, that's going to take dozens of engineers, each of whom are being paid $150,000 to $200,000 a year in order to pull that off. And that means, tens of millions of dollars worth of funding to do that one. If you're bringing a consumer product to market, about the minimum expense we've ever seen is around $250,000, but probably more like $500,000 to develop a product and bring it to market. And then it takes expansion capital beyond that. So the amount of capital that you need depends entirely on the type of business that you are creating. If you're just doing a coaching business or some other service-oriented business or a very simple business, you may find that $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in funding, which is generally achieved through your own funding or the funding of your partners, is sufficient for you to create a business that's profitable and sustainable. If you're bringing a consumer product to market, it's at least $250,000 to $500,000 to decide whether or not the product even works and whether or not you're able to bring that to market. And then probably millions of dollars beyond that in order to establish a nationwide presence to grow your business. And of course, as we mentioned before, if you're doing a software system, it can take millions and millions to even develop the prototype and get it off the ground. We are a big fan here at the Hoyt Management Group of the Lean Startup methodology, Office Hours 17, that we did a long time ago, nearly 2 years ago, on the Lean Startup methodology is one of my very favorites and the one that I find I recommend to my clients a tremendous amount. The Lean Startup simply says that you interact with the marketplace as quickly as you can, as often as you can, and you develop products in stage after stage, in iteration after iteration, in order to take advantage of the ideas that you get and the guidance that you get from the market that you want to serve. That really cuts down on the amount of capital that you need to start a business, and is the proven way to start business, the preferred way of starting business here where I live in California's Silicon Valley. So I guess the bottom line, the simple answer to that is it depends. Gosh, I'm sounding like an attorney here. But it does depend on how big of a business you want to create, on how quickly you want to create that business, and what type of business that you are creating as to how much capital that you need to take those first steps, or how much capital that you need to take the second steps or subsequent steps. And we, by the way, are very experienced when it comes to helping you answer those questions. So we encourage you to reach out and check in with us in some way so we can learn a little bit more about your particular business and give you a little more response other than the generic response that we were able to give on the coaching calls. And hopefully that was helpful to you. Stephanie, any comments on your own or next question?
I'm just really glad that you answered it that way. It's just so interesting to me. I've learned so much over the years working with you how important it is to make friends with your numbers.
Yeah, and I would one other. We do have a gentleman on the call that I recognize as being on the call who is bringing a consumer product to market, and as I know, I've been very consistent on the advice that I have given him in the do your market research. You know, very, very bright people have great ideas that the market doesn't want, and it doesn't take away from them at all. It doesn't take away from their genius. It doesn't take away from their passion, their effort, or certainly doesn't take away from the person that they are, the character that they have, and the integrity that they have, and the love for the fellow man that they have. So if the market says that, you know, we just don't want your stuff in the quantity that allows you to create a viable business out of that, you know, don't be dissuaded. Just go create the next invention and keep listening to your marketplace until you find an invention that the marketplace really does want, you know, that they're clamoring for, that they're hungry for, and then go make a strong business out of that. So that's one final comment there. So next question, Stephanie.
Beautiful. How do I determine who to add to my team next?
That is one of the questions that I get a tremendous amount. I think that was office hours number 2 that I did on adding staff to your team. And again, that was at least 2 years ago that we did that. Because it is a dangerous thing to do for young companies that have limited time and limited resources. It's not so dangerous if you've got 1,000 people on your team. To add number 1,001 is not so challenging. But if it's just you and somebody else, adding, you know, teammate number 3 or number 4 can be one of the most important decisions that you make in business. So the first thing that I recommend, whether you have 1,000 people on your team or whether it's just you and the little mouse in your pocket, is to figure out what you want this person to do. What gaps do you want them to close? What weaknesses in your own experience or talent do you need to compensate for? What areas of business performance, which one of the key performance areas are you not doing well in, don't have the time to do well in, don't want to do well in, or can't do well in, that you need to compensate for when you add that next teammate? One of the mistakes that I have seen people make over and over again is that they think that, you know, my business isn't doing too well because I'm not really good at sales, and my buddy Joe over here's business isn't doing very well, so I think that we'll do better together than we would separately. Thinking about having a greater delivery capacity or the greater capacity to develop products will in some way help the business be successful, when the real gap is a gap in sales and marketing expertise. So if you find that you're an expert in delivery and product development, then you need to get somebody on your team who's an expert in sales and marketing. So the number one thing to do is to figure out which gaps that you need to fill. I did another office hours presentation, and I think it was in the 40s somewhere, on a book called Nail It, Then Scale It. And in that book, the author says that he would never invest in a business that didn't have 3 key mindsets and experience areas filled. And he called it the huckster, the hacker, and the hopeful. The huckster being the salesperson, the hacker being the engineer, and the hopeful being the visionary leader. He wanted people to carry the flame. He wanted people who had experience in sales, and wanted people who could actually build stuff and get the job done as members of every team of the companies that he would consider for investment. And that's really good to think about too. So, and as he said in his book, he can oftentimes sees that 2 people can carry all 3 of those mindsets and talent areas, but it's very rare for one person to be gifted and talented in all 3 of those. Extremely rare indeed. And besides, you don't have, the time to do all 3 of those things well all the time anyway. So that's another good way of taking a look at it. Find yourself somebody who can fill out that huckster, hacker, and hopeful triad for your particular business. And if you've listened to the Business Survival Bootcamp, I talk a lot about being focused on sales and delivery. That's the number one mistake that I see that most small businesses do, is that they're focused on delivery. They're focused on invention. They're focused on the mechanics of starting a business instead of being focused on sales and marketing. Almost always, the next person that you need on your team is somebody with sales and marketing expertise. I remember in the office hours presentation that I did on staffing, we talked about how every time that you bring people onto your team, it is an investment. And young companies, small companies with limited time and resources really can't afford to have too many $5,000, $10,000 mistakes. So you need to do everything that you can to make sure that that first hire or that next hire, a small business, is a successful hire. So it's a little bit additional feedback there. Once you figure out what the job is that needs to be done, it's very important for you to have multiple interviews with a person and have multiple people interview that person. And the best practice is, by the way, to have those interviews at different times of the day. So just because somebody looks good in that first conversation doesn't mean that they're going to look good in conversations 2, 3, 4, and 5. So interview them at different times of the day. Make sure that you can meet with them face-to-face, or at least with a video chat if you can't meet with them face-to-face. And really be cautious on what that person might bring to your firm, and be cautious on making that interview. And always with the startup, we like for those first teammates of yours to be invested themselves, invested in terms of sweat equity, invested in terms of bringing their own money into the project if they can. We like for them to be more at a founder's level than just somebody that you're hiring. Last little piece of advice, oftentimes that one of those first people that you want to bring on board is somebody that can help you with administrative tasks, a remote virtual assistant, somebody that can do the little stuff that takes away from your being able to focus time and attention on those high-value activities. High-value activities like sales, high-value activities like product development, high-value activities like actually interfacing with your clients and doing the work and earning the money. If you find that you're spending a lot of time on the low-value activities, updating websites, posting blog entries, sending emails out, even the initial stages of lead generation, there are a lot of firms out there that will take over those tasks for you, at $10 an hour, or with remote, global support systems that we have now, maybe even $5 an hour, and who can do that stuff for you and allow you to focus your time and energy on those high-dollar tasks. So hopefully that was helpful. I do encourage you, if you haven't done already, to go watch Office Hours, and I think it's Office Hours number 2 on starting and adding people to your staff right away. And hopefully that will prove much helpful to you. And the Office Hours on the book Nail It, Then Scale It, which is in the Tribal portal, and you'll be able to find it there, about the importance of having those 3 mindsets of the salesperson, the engineer, and the visionary covered on your team. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Stephanie, any comments or the next question as you wish?
Mm-hmm. You know, a big challenge that I find with our clients who struggle with, building their team is they're able to identify those couple of functions and those couple of things, activities, tasks that need to be done repetitively, and they recognize that they're time suckers and they want to pass them off, but they many times cannot find the time to get that person trained or to really spend the time to get somebody at a point where they can just go get it done.
Yep.
And I find that if you can get through some kind of basic documentation process, whether it's a set of bullets or a simple how-to process, something documenting as you're building your team, so that as you're building, growing, and scaling things out, you're able to build these processes and these repetitive things on a consistent basis the way that you want your business to be run. So I just recommend that you take that time to start looking at those processes, as Paul said, as you're building your team, and help document and get your team to help you in documenting those processes. Because as you grow, it may take you 5 or 10 minutes before and may save you hours and hours later down the road when you're training, scaling, and growing.
I love that. That's really good. I'm going to add to that just a little bit. There's this school of thought, and I can't remember where it came from exactly. Somebody said that whenever you start a business, you should always pretend that you're starting a franchise, which is so that you create your trainings manuals and your operations manuals for your own team, if not for the opportunity to open up a new location or to actually do a franchise. And I do that, in my business routinely. Anytime that I have a procedure, like, for example, posting the invitations for people to attend office hours, or posting the office hours recordings, or my month-end checklist. I'm a big fan of checklists and procedures that are documented, so that when the time comes and you do have that staff member on board who can take over some of those responsibilities, that they're not starting from scratch, that you've got a well thought through and vetted operations checklist, a procedure document that you can use to begin their training with. It's going to save you a lot of time and money. So, nice comment, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Let's move on to our next question.
What is the number one thing I can do to give myself the best chance of success?
I oftentimes see I see emails come through where they say, here's the number one thing that you can do to make sure that your business is successful. I don't particularly believe in that, because my experience is that there is just not a number one thing, that if I do this one thing well, then I don't have to do other things well. In fact, that's a little different message than the one that I like to send to my clients into the marketplace, which is around the 7 key performance areas of business. As we said, at the top of the office hours, I'm a big believer that to be successful in business, to build a profitable, sustainable, and scalable business, that you have to be good in all 7 key performance areas of business, that you have to be effective in leadership, that you have to be great at sales, you have to be good at customer service, you have to be good at marketing, at financial management, at product development, and at operations and administration. If you have a weakness, a severe weakness in any one of those areas, it will cause you to struggle and it will inhibit your growth. That being said, the number one thing that I think that you need to do right now, if you're struggling at all in your business, is you got to sell something. When I did an office hours presentation, the one which was the most popular one I've ever done was called "What Do I Do When I Have No Money?" I think that was number 3 or 4 or 5. It was a long time ago, a couple of years ago. There were dozens and dozens of people that tuned into that call. And I know it's been watched a lot as a recording as well. And the number one piece of advice that I gave in there is you got to sell something. So, if I were to put one thing above those dozens of things that I think that you need to do well in order to have a strong business, it would be, I would put sales at the top of the list. That being said, if you go to sell something that's not profitable, if you don't have a viable business model, then selling a whole bunch of stuff at a loss, isn't going to help you out. You'll just find yourself being further and further in the hole. I'm reminded of the funny Saturday Night Live broadcast on somebody that had a business out of making change, that they could give you 2 dimes and a nickel for a quarter, or 10 nickels for a 50-cent piece, or 4 quarters for a dollar. They had lots and lots of innovative ways to make change for people. And the question was, of course, well, if you're just making change, how do you make your money? And the answer was, well, we make it up on volume. We just make it up on volume. But no matter how good at sales you are, if you don't make a profit on the products and services that you sell, if you don't cover your overhead expenses, if your gross profit isn't high enough, or the volume isn't high enough to cover your operating expenses, and you don't make a net income, you're not going to stay in business for very long at all. So if I put sales at number 1, it's with the caveat that if you're not selling something at a profit, then it doesn't make any difference how much you sell. You're never going to build a profitable, sustainable, and scalable business. So take that into mind, that maybe it really is that creating a viable, winnable business model, giving yourself a chance at a winnable game worth playing, is really the number 1 thing, and we have to put that just a little bit ahead of sales. We'll see. Any thoughts on that you have, Stephanie?
The one thing that came to mind when you asked that question, I remember when my kids were little, too many years ago, I was watching a show on Oprah, and I remember one of her guests was talking about working women who wanted it all. They wanted a nice career, they wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, they wanted all these different things. And she said the buzzword at the time was balance, right? Find that balance. And I remember her getting all frustrated on that couch up there and saying, there really is no secret sauce to balance. On some days you're way over here, and some days you're way over here. And trying to find that perfect balance, that one thing, sometimes can be an illusion. We just have to learn to go back and forth. And I think that that's just so true with what you were talking about with success. It's just another one of those things. Some days we really need to work on our personal growth. Some days it's sales. Some days it could be organizing the office and getting your space. There's so many different pieces to success. So there you go. I think it's one of those things where you have to stay flexible.
Yeah, well said. I really do appreciate that. And as a reminder, many of you out there have at some form or fashion purchased my Awaken's CEO Foundations program. And we talk about the 7 key performance areas of business a lot. Behind those, I've got the 39 success principles of business that are scattered across those 7 key performance areas of business that are in the Awaken CEO Foundations program. So there are a lot of different levels and layers at which you can learn to do the things that are necessary to give yourself a balanced business, to be competent in every area of your business, to give yourself the very best chance at massive success and accelerated growth through avoidance of making crazy mistakes along the way. I want to take just a second before we move on to the next question and talk about the work that we do here at Hoyt Management Group. Our distinctions are that we focus on the whole system. With our Awaken CEO system, we want you to get the support that you need, that you can use and you can afford. And we also focus on professional growth, personal growth, and business growth at the same time. Our support services include both planning and execution. We tell people that we're a planning and execution firm with a heavy emphasis on the execution, because what we know from our own personal experience and from having worked with hundreds of CEOs and entrepreneurs is that it really is all about the execution. Having a vision is about 1% of your success. Understanding what your status is, creating your plan, and then gathering your resources is another 2, 3, 4% of your success. But your real success, 97%, 95% of your success, is focusing on the execution day after day after day after day. So we pride ourselves on being both an execution and planning firm, where we help you develop plans, then we'll help you stay with those plans and execute the plans that we help you create. Our next office hours presentation will be in 2 weeks on October the 19th. We're skipping a week because next week on Monday I'm going to be on the road heading to visit some clients in San Diego. And the topic is to be determined here in 2 weeks. I've got some pretty good ideas, but I don't want to commit to anything quite yet. If you have some ideas about what you'd like for me to talk about, a discussion topic, please go to paulsurvey.com and let us know. And with that, I want to go back into questions and answers here on our live group coaching session. If you're on the call, feel free to type something into the chat box if you like. If you are listening on the over the telephone, you are welcome to send me a text at 415-997-8001 as it shows on the screen, or an email to paul@paulhoyt.com, and I'll check my emails and we'll see whether or not there's something I can support you with today. So with that, Stephanie, do we have any other questions for today or discussion topics?
Yes, this one was sent by email, and this is a really good one. I've been waiting for this one.
Okay.
When should I do market research?
I think the answer is all the time. When you first start your business, you want to do market research to see whether or not the idea you have for your business is a good idea. I hate to see people spending $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 on going to China and buying 10,000 widgets, only to find out that people don't want to buy those widgets in a sufficient quantity at a sufficient price point to allow you to create a successful business. You'd be far better off doing what they call a concept test from the very beginning, which, by the way, doesn't cost very much money at all, if anything, to do. A concept test says, here's my concept. I want to create, General Mills did one of these a long time ago, and their concept test looked something like this. I want to create a pre-packaged package of food materials that when you take this stuff out of the package and you merge it with a pound of hamburger, that it can, within about 15 minutes, create a meal that's sufficient for a family of 4. In that particular case, they were talking about Hamburger Helper, and of course the marketplace said, yeah, I'd be real interested in spending $1.29, which would allow me to, take a pound of hamburger and create something for a family of 4. And of course, Hamburger Helper has been a big seller for them for dozens of years. But you can do the same thing with a concept test for your business. Would you like, here's a real example from somebody I talked to a few years ago. Would you like for me to build an alarm that I could put on a doorknob so that any time that the doorknob was moving or we sensed that the door had opened, that it would set out an alarm? And in their particular case, the answer was yes. I mean, what a simple alarm that would be to put on your exterior doors. But the surprise came when they said that people who had kids who used to sleepwalk, or aging parents who were having some difficulty, but normally had their door shut, that they would put one of these alarms on the door so that the parents or the caregivers would be woken up when anytime somebody was leaving the room. And that turned out to be, a brand new market that they didn't even perceive. They thought that the door alarm, the really simple door alarm, would be for exterior doors only. But as it turns out, the bigger use of it was for interior doors and for parents and caregivers who wanted to see whether or not the person they were responsible for was up and stirring and moving around the house. So it's a really good idea to do market research from the very beginning. First of all, to ask the market whether or not they think that your concept is a good concept, whether or not they would like to buy it and at what price point they would like to buy it before you invest lots of bucks in creating the prototypes or creating, actually purchasing the finished product in mass quantities, hopefully to bring it to market. And then you want to make sure that you do market research all along the way. The lean startup methodology says do market research before we create the prototype, and then after we create the prototype, we want to go back to our market and ask them again what they think about it. And then after we create prototype number 2 and 3 and 4, at every step along the way, we want to do our market research and ask our market whether or not we have nailed it, whether or not we have nailed it before we scale it, and it gives us our very best chance of success. So actually market research, I talked about the Awaken CEO Foundations program and 39 success principles that we define in there. The number one success principle in the area of marketing is market research and market intelligence. You have to do it early, you have to do it often, you have to do it continuously in order to make sure that you are building and delivering products and services that your marketplace wants you to build and deliver, and that they want to purchase in mass quantities so you can grow a sustainable, scalable business. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, any other questions or any other comments, or the next question, if you please?
I think you said it beautifully. I was just going to say I think market research should be done as much, as often, and as much as you possibly can. Always listen.
One other quick point, by the way, before we leave that subject, is that there's two important things about market research that you need to know. One of them is that you likely are not able to do the market research yourself unless you can do it with a very humble, open heart. Because if you do it from a place of a lot of warrior energy, a lot of, hey, what do you think about this product kind of energy, people are not going to give you an honest answer because they don't want to confront you. If you do it with a humble heart, with a vulnerable heart, and say, hey, please, before I go spend a lot of money here, I really need your feedback. So if you see something, some way that this would be improved, or if you just think it's a bad idea, please let me know that, because I don't want to waste my time and energy going down the road that's not going to be fruitful for me. I think that you can be successful in doing that. But I oftentimes recommend that you have a third party do your market research, because if it's somebody that says, hey, we're a market research firm and we're doing this, third party research for a company, you're likely to get a more honest response. The other thing that's real important about market research is that you make sure you're asking your target market. Make sure you're asking, so the first most important question is, would you be interested in purchasing a product like this? Because if somebody says, no, I'm not interested in purchasing a product like this, that's something I would never buy, they're not in your target market. And no matter what they say about the features and benefits, no matter what they say about the price, it isn't nearly as valuable as somebody who really is in your target market and who does have an interest in purchasing the products and services that you want to sell. So there's just a little couple of more pieces of advice in the area of market research. So let's move on to the next question. Do we have any more questions, Stephanie?
Yes. How do I determine when to give up and when to persevere?
Wow, that's a tough question. And mostly I always give the advice to people that you continue to persevere. Persevere, persevere, persevere until you have exhausted all of your available resources, or until the collateral damage of persevering is too great. So I know there's a school of thought out there that says no plan B, that the only way that you're ever going to be successful in business is if you burn all of the ships. And that's the famous story about, I don't know who it was, Cortez, I think it was, who docked in the New World and and decided to burn all of his ships because he knew that otherwise his sailors would want to retreat to the ships. It was either that they had to be successful and wait for rescue, or they all were going to die. Well, that's an interesting approach. I had people, one of my favorite authors, Greg Reed, with his book 3 Feet from Gold, talks about all the times where people have been persistent, and because they were persistent, they were successful in their business. At the times that they felt like giving up, that they mustered that additional courage to just dig a little bit deeper, to try a little bit harder, to work a little bit longer, to put forth a little more effort, and it paid off, and it paid off in big time for them. But I also want to balance that out with the people that I have seen who have spent all of their life savings, who have spent their life savings of themselves and their families and their brothers and their sisters and their partners and their friends in pursuing a business idea that just wasn't going to work out no matter how much money that they spent on it. I've seen people lose their marriages. I've seen people lose their health. And I've even seen people lose their lives because of issues that they had and the emotional stress that they caused upon themselves and others, pursuing a business opportunity which just didn't work out. I've seen people lose a lot because of because they had a business that was working well, but then for whatever reason, it started not working well because the market didn't respond in the way they wanted them to anymore, or the competitive pressures were too much, or economic positions, or natural disasters. So there's a lot of reasons for you to add a little bit of wisdom and good sense and balance to that question of, should I continue, or should I chuck it in, call it a day, and look for another open window? It's always up to you. You get to make that decision. But I encourage you, if you're causing too much damage to your family, if you're causing too much stress, to yourself by persevering in a way that is just too much, then I encourage you to take a little time out to perhaps find something else that you can do. If you can do what you can do with a joyful heart, and you can do it with a level of stress that does not damage your health or cause you to feel extremely depressed or bipolar about the whole thing, then by all means continue and give it your very best effort. And before you give up, make sure that you're talking to a lot of other people and find out whether or not this is just a bad day, or you're having a bad week, or maybe even you're having a bad month or two. Make sure that you have given it enough time to determine whether or not it really is time to go in a different direction in your life, or whether or not, like Greg Reed says, that you are just 3 feet from gold. And if you put forth a little more effort, if you worked until 10 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, if you worked on Saturdays and Sundays, if you just gave it a little more effort, asked a little more advice, brainstormed a little more often, got a few more people on your support team, that you would be successful in that business. Make sure that you've gone that extra mile. Make sure that you have asked those questions, that you have done everything that you can to make sure to ensure the viability of your business before you decide to chuck it in. And then if you can look yourself in the mirror with great sense of pride and say, I gave it a great shot. I gave it my best shot. But at some point in time, it just decided the universe has been trying to beat me over the head with a 2x4 to get me to take this in a different direction. Then I think it's okay for you to make that decision and to take that business in the next direction. And we're happy to be one of those sounding boards for you if you find that you're in tough times. Of course, we love to help and work with people who are overjoyed with the incredible success that they're having, and they want to create a plan to make that success even greater. But we also take a great pride in our ability to work with people who are challenged in their business, either challenged in startup mode or challenged in turnaround mode, and do everything we can to help them be successful too. Stephanie, if you have anything to add to that, that's great. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
Next question. I need to develop a large computer system to handle potentially millions of members. How do I go about doing that?
That's a big challenge. And the questioner may know that I spent 31 years in the information systems industry designing and developing small, medium, and large computer systems for a long time. So I do have a little bit of perspective on that particular question. But the truth is, it's been 14 years since I've been on the top of the technology, so I don't know what technology is available today in order to create a computing infrastructure that's going to have millions of simultaneous users. The largest systems that I ever worked on had tens of thousands of simultaneous users, but not millions of simultaneous users. The good news is, where I live here in Silicon Valley, there are dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people who do know how to create those technical infrastructures. So I think that this falls into one of my classic pieces of advice that I give people, which is to pay attention to the 3 expert rule. Whenever you're not an expert in a particular area that deserves an expert's opinion, to make sure that you're talking to at least 3 experts in this area, and so that you can compare their opinions and their ideas to see if you have some consensus. In this particular case, I'd want to find somebody who worked for Facebook, or who worked for Twitter, or who worked for LinkedIn, and I would ask them questions about the technical, as much as they could tell me, of course, that wasn't proprietary and secret to their organization, about how one goes about creating the technical infrastructure, how we have hundreds or even thousands of servers in a data center or in data centers across the world that can support that kind of a workload, and get their best advice on how to architect that. So that's number one, is you want to apply the 3 expert rule. Make sure that you're talking to at least 3 experts. If they all agree, then you've got your answer. If one of them disagrees, then you might want to look further. And of course, if they all 3 disagrees on what your best approach is, then you want to keep asking more and more experts until you get some level of consensus or some level of comfort that if you go in a particular direction, that it's going to be a good and profitable direction for you. The other piece of advice I would tell you is to start small. Google started in a garage with it. Well, actually, it started on servers that were at Stanford University, and then the next step was put servers in the garage of one of the founders of it. And then only after they had exhausted their capability did they move out into much more larger data centers. So they didn't set out from the very beginning to create a system that would support millions of users. They set out to create a system that would support thousands of users. And then when they proved themselves in the marketplace, when they started bursting at the seams, then they went to re-architect the solution for one that would support hundreds of thousands or millions. And of course, now they've got solutions that will support 1 billion simultaneous users. So I think those are the 2 most important pieces of advice. Number one is ask the experts, talk to the experts, make sure that you get expertise on your team to start off whenever you have questions like that. And the second one is start small and grow it. I think every big successful enterprise always started out small, in a controlled release function or fashion, making sure that they architected a solution that would work with a few dozen or a few hundred or a few thousand users before they decided to architect a solution that would work with millions and millions of users. You're not likely to get funding, by the way, for a solution to support millions of users when you haven't proven that thousands of people want it and more people want it every day. So that's the 2 biggest pieces of advice I would share with regards to how and when you develop a computing system infrastructure that's capable of supporting millions of simultaneous users. Any thoughts for your own, Stephanie, or do we have any other questions? I think we got time for one more, if we have any more.
Yeah, we have one more, so let's get going so we can get this gentleman's questions answered.
Perfect.
My cash is low and the vendors are getting cranky. What should I do? Besides not answer the phone.
Well, besides not answer the phone, yeah, I'm a big fan in answering the phone, but there are two things that I recommend when cash is low and the vendors are cranky. Number one is to have a conversation with them. Just don't go absent on them, because if you go absent on them, that only raises their hostility, and it only makes them wonder whether or not they're ever going to get paid. So have a conversation with them, be honest with them about the situation that you're in and the challenges that you're facing and the reasons why you are delaying payment. If in fact you don't believe that you owe them that money, then by all means tell them so. Say, you didn't deliver, or for whatever reason that and I would say that you have in your agreement in writing that gives you the right to not pay them in some way, then you be open about that as well. But the number one thing that you can do when the cash is low and the vendors are cranky is to pay them something. To decide, I owe people $10,000, I only have $1,000 that I can put towards that debt, is to pay everybody a little bit of something. Because I know personally, and I've had other people tell me this, if you owe me $1,000 and you send me 100, I feel pretty good about that. I feel a lot better about that than if you owe me $1,000 and you haven't sent me anything. If you owe me, $100 and you send me $1, that's not quite a good faith. But anytime that you can pay more than 10%, 10 to 20% of the outstanding debt, then that is seen as your vendor as being a good faith payment, and it can go a long way towards healing those relationships. And of course, the idea is that we want to keep making those payments, month after month after month, as your ability to make those payments comes through, to then go ahead and make those payments. And I'd much rather you pay me off, over a period of months than not pay me at all. And I feel much better about you and much better about the relationship, and have a lot less fear in my life about not getting paid if in fact you're paying me a little something on those, on kind of an installment plan. Almost everybody feels that way, as I believe too. So with that, we're going to let that be the last office hours question for today. I really appreciate those of you who are tuning in via the telephone and those who attended live on the webinar for coming and joining us with our live group coaching. I invite you to join us in 2 weeks. We're going to miss next week because I'm going to be on the road. But in 2 weeks, we'll have another office hours presentation on a subject of interest to you. Please go to paulsurvey.com and let me know what is of interest to you, and reach out and chat with us if there's anything that we can do to support you in your business. Send us an email, give us a call, or go to schedulepaul.com to schedule a time to make sure that we connect. And until we meet the next time, until we have a conversation the next time, this is Paul Hoyt wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.